Thank you everyone for coming today. I'm so sorry I've brought the British weather with me. But if it's any consolation, when we did this event in Melbourne last week, we also had a bit of a rainy day. So, I feel like I've been at least fair between Sydney and Melbourne. So welcome, I'm Helen Mile. I'm Chief Marketing Officer at Vue. Delighted that you could all make it here today, despite the weather. I wanted to just give you a little introduction to Vue and talk about why we do this research, so State of the Nation. But before that, just a quick introduction to who we are. So we're a dedicated SSP for Programmatic Out of Home. We are live in 19 countries. We're about to launch number 20 and 21, which is Portugal and South Africa. Lots of expansion in LATAM as well, Europe, Asia. So a really positive story, because what we're seeing is such a strong appetite for understanding how programmatic is helping to take out of home to that next level, but also not just within the out of home audiences, but actually expanding it and making it much more accessible and relevant for digital buyers. And that's really a strong growth area that we're seeing. And we'll talk a little bit more about that shortly. So the research that we've done, State of the Nation, is something that we've done now in Australia for 3 years, globally for 4 or 5. This year we spoke to over 1,200 media buyers, both from the out-of-home audiences, but also digital buyers. And as I said before, that's really critical. And that was in 6 countries, so UK, US, France, Germany, Australia, where have I missed? Spain.
Spain, yeah.
But the idea is really to get an understanding of what is the appetite for programmatic out of home. How is it being adopted? What are the challenges that we as an industry still need to face? And this is not about, Vue's platform. It's very much about, as an industry, how can we come together? How can we work together to address some of these challenges and grow this adoption of this fantastic new way of buying digital out of home? So you can see some of the Australia-specific findings on the flyer. There is a QR code there if you want to download the full report. There is also a global version, and then you can also download any of the other countries if you want to have a bit more of a comparison than that. So, I would encourage you to spend some time reading through that. But one of the most interesting facts that we found from the Australian market in particular was that when we looked at budgets that are coming in, it was very much about that incremental budget that is coming in. So it's not just about moving budget from a traditional direct buy into programmatic. And 29% of those who were surveyed stated they were reallocating from other digital channels. 28% was coming from other traditional channels, and critically, 15% were creating net new, completely new budgets specifically for programmatic out of home. What we're seeing, as I mentioned, is growth year on year, so almost doubling year on year. We're seeing new brands coming into this space, so programmatic, with the increased flexibility, lots more options, is actually lowering the barriers to entry and bringing new brands in, as well as some existing brands who've already been using out of home, but then they're testing and learning and seeing how best to use this potentially alongside their direct buys. To this end, because of this growth that we've seen, we have invested and we're delighted to say that we've now got people on the ground. So I don't have the right accent for here, but we have Mitch. Where's Mitch? I think he's right there in the back. So welcome, Mitch. We're delighted to have you join the Vue team. We also have Ryan. He couldn't be here today, but he is here, and we are planning to make more hires in this market as well. So just shows you how committed we are. Australia is a really great market for us, and we see that growth continuing and that appetite continuing. So just coming back to the research, when we talked about this new budgets, net new budgets that are coming in, the key to accessing those budgets is actually diversification of the conversations. So who are you talking to? And when we look at the out-of-home teams, the main out-of-home teams, it's about a small percentage, 7%, who are accessing these new budgets. But when those conversations happens through the digital or programmatic team, that's increasing to 17%. And 22% when it's a dedicated programmatic digital out-of-home team, which again, we're seeing that format in agencies as they start to understand the nuances of programmatic digital out-of-home, but also programmatic from a digital perspective. And when we look at managed service DSP teams, this has increased to a whopping 75%. So I'm sure the panel is going to have a lot to say. They've promised me a spicy conversation. That was their words. So with that, I'm going to hand you over to Jem Jamal, who's our Global New Business Director. If you want to tweet, please use the hashtag SOTN. Share on View, tag us. We all love all of those kinds of things. But it's about the conversation today, and I hope you get some value. So welcome, and over to Jem.
Thanks, Helen. Okay, that was a bit loud. So yes, I'm Jem Jamal. I'm Global New Business Development Director at View. My team and I spend a lot of time speaking to programmatically savvy brands, media agencies and programmatic buying units. Our job is very much to create excitement in the channel and kind of stimulate demand. I'm going to hand over to my panel in a bit to introduce themselves, but as Helen says, over the next 45 minutes, we'll be spending some time debating the key findings of the State of the Nation report for the Australian market in particular. As Helen also says, there's a QR code on the pamphlets in front of you if you wanted to kind of download not just the Australian report, but other reports. And I'd encourage you to really do that, because having done this in the US, UK, and all the other markets, each market is at different stages of their development and evolution. And sometimes it's a good way of seeing how the trend is and how it can kind of resonate in your market as well. The Wi-Fi code is Marriott Bonvoy, no password. There'll be questions. We'll be using Slido for questions throughout the discussion. So please use slido.com passcode 41888877 or scan the QR code on the slides. And then without further ado, I'm going to start with Sean and then possibly work our way around and ask the panel to introduce themselves.
Thank you. Yeah, my name's Sean. I'm an account director at NEAR. Bit about NEAR. We're a third-party data provider that works closely with the out-of-home industry to power planning, buying, planning, retargeting, and also attribution tools.
Welcome, Sean.
Hi everyone, Brad Palmer, National Programmatic Director at Data2Co. I think a lot of you know our brand, global sort of out-of-home company.
Welcome, Brad.
Good morning, my name is Michael. I head up all digital programmatic out-of-home at Tonic Media. We are a place-based vendor with screens located in GPs, hospitals, retail pharmacies, health-based environments.
Welcome, Michael.
Hi, my name is Catherine Pockrodge. I have the pleasure of being a Group Investment Director at Essence Mediacom, looking after a bunch of our global piece of business, so Coca-Cola Company, Bayer, Hasbro, and a few others. So.
Welcome, Catherine.
And I'm Laura Mayers. I'm an account director at the Trade Desk. If you don't know the Trade Desk, it's the world's largest independent DSP. We love working with brands, especially on digital out-of-home, as one of the newest channels in our omni-channel activations.
Thank you. Well, welcome again. Shall we jump straight in to question number one? So, View's State of the Nation Australia survey results reported that when looking at buying methods, there was a fairly even split between clients using exclusively either direct digital out-of-home buys, programmatic digital out-of-home buys, and a combination of both direct and programmatic. In fact, Australia responded above the global average for programmatic-only buys at 35% versus the global average of 30%. Catherine, if I can start with you. Are you discussing buying methods with your clients, and why choose either direct, programmatic, or a combination?
Yeah, I think, look, it totally depends, right? So absolutely, we're always discussing the buying methods with our clients, but it does depend on the clients. Like, it depends on what kind of state of maturity they're in. So we've got some that, are very much and have been for a long time, exploring, digital, like direct IO, programmatic, etc. We've got some that are still less comfortable, and I think that's where it's an education job, but that is really up to the agencies to make sure that for the briefs we're getting, objectives, etc., that we're actually putting the right thing forward. And I think that's where it matters less about whether we're doing direct IO out of home, whether we're doing programmatic out of home, and more about what the objective of that campaign is, what the role of out of home is going to be, and where the various buying methodologies sit.
Fantastic. So campaign objectives first and then work things out after that.
Yeah, totally. I can't tell you the last time we thought channel first and just went, okay, cool, we're going to do out of home, but what's our objective, you know? So I think it always comes back to, what are we trying to do here?
Absolutely. Laura, what about from an omni-channel DSP perspective?
From our perspective as a DSP, obviously we see the programmatic dollars, but from the conversations that we have with our clients, as Catherine said, it's quite dependent on how advanced the client is. I think we have a lot of advanced clients who really understand the capabilities and strength of buying digital out of home programmatically, and then they do approach that from a really long-term strategic play. We also work with super advanced clients like the likes of Sightline, who are really productizing the whole channel and are really savvy in helping them push that market forward. But yeah, I think it's an education piece, and for us, it's how well the clients understand the capabilities and the strengths of buying programmatically.
Fantastic. And is that message landing, do you think, with the clients at the moment?
I think we're getting there. Definitely an education piece to work on, but it's definitely growing.
Excellent. And then I guess Brad first and then Michael. What about from an MO perspective, a media owner's perspective?
I think the two main ways we're sort of seeing hybrid campaigns is, one, if there's no avails on the direct IO side and they want to transact and run on certain assets, particularly large format, they'll run a small amount of the budget to make sure they get on really high quality large format assets as part of their sort of direct IO buy. So that's quite complementary in that execution. And the other scenario we're probably seeing the most is just for the clients that are initially dipping their foot into programmatic out of home. So, they're not going to put 100% of the budget in a lot of the time, so they'll go 10 or 20%. They'll look to plug gaps in the direct IO schedule to make sure that they've got a bit of small format in this market. So I think, as long as those communication lines are open between the agency, the trading desk, DSP, you can be really quite complementary and enhance the campaign rather than being, acting against it or, one versus the other. So that's probably the two main scenarios we're seeing.
Fantastic. And that flexibility is very important, right, to see a test and then upweight if you need to. Michael?
Yeah, at Tonic we're seeing an even split, I guess, of all three. We have some clients that are just trading across direct. There are some clients that are trading strictly programmatically, and then we also have some that are using a combination of both. And I think those clients that are using a combination of both are really the exciting ones.
Yeah.
And I guess, as an example, you'll have some clients doing big branding pushes and then activating LAM campaigns, local area marketing campaigns, and they're doing that so that they can, again, build on incremental audience across the board. So it's good.
So basically, programmatic become like the amplification piece or the support for the direct buy.
Correct.
Excellent. Brilliant. Okay, so the next question is similarly when looking where budget for programmatic digital out of home is coming from, and this is what Helen touched on earlier, there are significant levels coming from other channels. 29% from other digital channels, 28% from other traditional channels such as press and radio, but we're also seeing 15% which is net new into the channel itself. Laura, as a multi-channel DSP, is this budget allocation from digital channels something that you're seeing as well?
Yeah, I think so. I think more and more we're definitely seeing digital out of home playing a role in the overall digital strategy rather than just a standalone traditional medium that it was seen as. Again, I think it's dependent on the client. I think we've got a lot of clients who are seeing programmatic digital out of home as sort of a testing phase, and in that it's a bit more ad hoc and in the testing mindset, and it's not a part of their long-term strategic overview. But the ones who, so generally with that you see them carving away the budget from other digital channels, less so getting net new revenue. But I think, yeah, as I said before, I guess education piece on where programmatic digital out of home sits and the strengths of it as part of an omni-channel strategy are going to mean there's that net new sort of income rather than just carving away budget from other digital channels.
Yeah, excellent. Michael, so what are the conversations that you as an MO are having to access this new budget versus converting existing digital out-of-home budget? And can you actually track this as incremental? I mean, you touched on it earlier, but how do you do that?
This has actually been a really important topic for us at Tonic, mainly because 100% of our inventory is available for programmatic trading. So I think before having conversations around incremental budget, we as a business have been really on the ball, if you will, in making sure that we're not cannibalizing on any direct revenue, which ultimately comes back to a conversation around what is the objective of the campaign. If it's a branding push, if it's awareness, that's something that can be done through direct. So where programmatic will come into play is in that more targeted approach. And in cases like that, it's us tapping into digital budgets, which again, as a business, we've really strived to make sure, to really strive what we're tapping into over the last couple of years. In terms of incremental budget, it's hard to kind of, I guess, measure at this stage, because a lot of the time we are seeing across programmatic just revenue coming from digital buys. So in that case, it's either coming from a video buy or a digital audio buy. So yeah, in terms of incremental reach, it's been a hard one for us. But as long as we're tapping into those digital budgets as opposed to direct revenue, is always a plus for us at this stage.
Absolutely. And on View, that's something we're seeing as well. It's very difficult to pinpoint those channels, but we do see the net new at the end of it, and they all play a part. Catherine, is the budget allocation from digital channels that's something you're seeing as well?
I think there's various pieces to this, right? So obviously, like, you know, clients don't have an infinite amount of budget. So when there are things like programmatic out of home or other channels that they want to work with, it's always going to come from somewhere. But I think, you know, the 29% number from digital and the 28% number from traditional, and then, you know, that 15% new, like, there are stories behind that. And like, what we're seeing for our global clients in particular is, you know, there's real massive crunch on creative budgets, right? And so if they aren't making a bunch of new TVCs, then we actually have to be really tactical about where we can run advertising campaigns. And so what we are seeing increasingly is that programmatic, like out of home, is often where spend is going if we don't have the assets for what we want to do in digital or traditional media. And so, you know, the numbers are obviously telling that story, and we're honestly seeing that quite a lot, but a lot of it is sometimes coming down to creative as well. And with the fact that in programmatic we can apply that digital targeting and activation, that is a really good opportunity, and that's why we might not be seeing the same funds go to direct IO out of home, because we can't tell that story in the way we would for digital. I do think, though, there is a traditional media piece here as well, like 28% coming from traditional. That's quite a significant amount as well. And so a lot of our clients are looking at programmatic out of home as that middle point, and it's easy for agencies to tell that story. But the 15%, look, so many clients have test and learn budgets, and typically they'll sit somewhere around the 10 to 15%. So that budget makes total sense. So I think the numbers tell a story, but there's definitely a lot of nuances to it.
Excellent. It's good to see the numbers are aligning at least, right? So programmatic is enabling digital out-of-home advertising to be more closely integrated in multi-channel campaigns, especially alongside other digital channels. Sean, as programmatic is doing this and enabling more sort of digital out-of-home to have closer alignment with multi-channel campaigns, how are you seeing this impacting the measurement piece?
Yeah, so look, traditionally out of home has been a channel for big, bold brand campaigns. And the introduction of programmatic out of home has really brought about an interesting mix of those key strengths of traditional out of home and also more performance metrics. So essentially the rise in programmatic out of home has really just been a catalyst from the measurement side of things. We're finding that our customers are really eager to figure out what the metrics are that will prove that value of out of home and its value alongside other digital channels. So things like footfall and drive to web, common and everyday conversations with marketers, and we're really seeing the eagerness to sort of explore alternative data sources and metrics to drive home the value of programmatic in the market.
Excellent. And, you know, similar to the conversations that we're having in market, and clients are becoming more aware of the measurement options that are out there, and we've moved from just brand awareness to footfall and then offline to online as well. Excellent. Catherine, for the brands that you work with, how is programmatic digital out of home aligning with other channels?
Yeah, I I think when we're talking about like omni-channel approaches, like ultimately like the objective that we're trying to do there, right, is to target, you know, the same sort of audience group across their journey and how they're still, like what channels they're going in, right? And I think what we're doing from a programmatic out-of-home point of view is really being able to nail those high-value audiences in a more broadcast environment. So there will be times where it's not relevant to do programmatic out-of-home in that way, but if, say, so we've got one client at the moment that is very fiercely going after, you know, males who, you know, work on their cars, right? And so if we were going to do like a traditional out-of-home buy, we just like, man, the wastage on that would be nuts, right? But when we think omni-channel, we can look at the signals across, you know, all of the different channels, programmatic out-of-home being one of them, and then target them exclusively. So I think there's definitely a role, and it's just about the story that we're telling and also the partners that we're working with to make sure that they have to have access to that data and to that signaling, and then also attribution so that we can actually measure, because there's no point in doing omni-channel if we actually aren't targeting the same audiences everywhere. It's not going to work. So that's when the data and targeting capabilities are so crucial. And like agency side, that's what we're asking from our partners, to make sure that we know for sure that we're actually doing that same targeting at every single channel, so we're telling that story.
Excellent, thank you. Brad, as a media owner driving programmatic in this market, are there lessons we have or should have learned from programmatic adoption in other channels?
I don't know.
I was hoping you wouldn't say that.
It's, I mean, there's sort of challenges across the whole ecosystem, right? Like, nothing's perfect. You know, when we started, you know, did all our CPMs across all our inventory, we looked at BVOD and CTV as that was a sort of key broadcast channel moving into a programmatic space. There was a lot of kind of parallels. We look at it now, you know, their measurement system took like 5 years to build. There's challenges with that. It's definitely not perfect in terms of frequency. I think we've all seen, you know, some of the platforms and received the same ads back to back quite a few times in recent times. So there's a lot of challenges there. You know, catch up with some people in audio. They've got similar challenges in that traditional versus programmatic world, maybe a few more than what out of home's got as well. And then there's a lot of stuff going on in that digital space with the cookies deprecating and those kind of things. So I'm comfortable with where we're at. Like, I think we know where we're heading. We know what we're doing. All the data suggesting that, you know, it's incremental to the business. Where, you know, we're moving into that sort of, you know, measurement area. You know, we're running this campaign of the year, slight plug, campaign of the year flyer on your table. But, you know, we're trying to drive innovation in this market and just run really great campaigns that drive results for clients. And there's been a lot of uptick of clients actually just briefing us to say, how do we win this? What's the right campaign mix to win this award? So I think, you know, we could look to the side and look at some of our other sort of channels, but I'm comfortable with where we're heading.
As long as you're comfortable, Brad,
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
the main thing. Yeah, absolutely. Laura, from a DSP perspective, what more could or should digital out of home be doing to support programmatic adoption?
I think what I'd like to see is like a breakdown in the silos between traditional buying, planning, and activation teams. I think there's obviously pros and cons to buying both traditionally and programmatically. And it's our job to educate on the benefits of that. So, like, for example, for a more tactical execution, obviously that lends itself to programmatic, whereas if it's more general high reach to traditional. And I think where we'll see net new investment come into the channel is where we can see that sort of activation. But I think for that, we need the planners to be on that journey.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Thank you. We're going to move on to measurement now. Measurement has always been a big topic, not just in Australia, but globally. When programmatic digital out-of-home measurement metrics lean strongly towards performance-based indicators such as sales increase and website traffic, which, if any other attributes, are most important to brands and agencies when discussing or tracking measurement? Laura, as you have the microphone, I'm going to stick with you if that's okay. What metrics are you looking for as a DSP when evaluating programmatic digital out-of-home, either alone or alongside other channels?
I don't think we necessarily need anything more than what we're getting. We're already getting sort of, you know, geospatial data from our partners to be able to tie back digital out-of-home to business outcomes. I think what we look at obviously as well, what we really need is programmatically available inventory, like guaranteed inventory on digitized screens. I think like the biggest thing that is going to impede growth in the channel is only allowing certain inventory to be bought a certain type of way.
Yeah.
So I think having that guaranteed access to programmatic inventory is going to be key.
Yeah, absolutely. Catherine, what are your clients or you as an agency looking for? Are they the same as other digital channels?
Yeah, I think this one's really simple, if I'm honest. And I've already had 2 conversations on this week, and it's only Tuesday morning. And that is that every single dollar, it doesn't matter if it's programmatic out of home or it's normal, like prove to me the ROI of that dollar, right? And so, you know, we can have a bunch of metrics and we can have a bunch of measurement, that's fab. But at the end of the day, our clients really only care about one thing, and that is the return on investment of their money. And I did actually even have a client say to me yesterday that he's like, look, I can see that out of home's working. I can see that, you know, I'm getting sales results, but how do I know? And he's like, I know. We literally presented a literal measurement study to them, and he was like, I'm still not sold because the out of home partner did even say, they were like, out of home's never going to be perfect. And I was like, I think that's it, right? So we need to get it right, and this is just going to get more and more. Budgets we're already having some difficult conversations for next year. So if you can prove to me that dollar makes them 2, done.
Absolutely.
I think additionally to that, there will be very few campaigns that go out the door at Essence MediaCom which are just a programmatic only campaign. It's part of a broader omni-channel mix. There's at least going to be 1 or 2 other channels that are live at the same time. So out of home works in a priming position, right? Where it's, you know, a bit upper in the funnel. It's kind of, you know, planting the seed, and then you can drive people down the funnel with the digital channels. So I think it's unfair to just measure programmatic out of home based on success and just the measurement and just the footfall when it's having a priming effect. And that's where I think, you know, platforms like the Trade Desk come in, where they can start to wrap all that together. They can do, you know, retargeting, they can do native, they can do video, they can do all these kind of elements with all different data points. And that's when I think we're hitting the sweet spot.
I think just to further that, sorry.
Oh, go for it.
Thanks for the sell, Brad. I think like we see, obviously we get the bird's eye view, and like one of the things that we look at is like a path to conversion when we're looking at omni-channel activation, and being able to see digital out of home's place driving that time to conversion shorter is really amazing. And I think being able to see that alongside everything else is super valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. That holistic view is definitely very, very important. Sean, as a measurement provider, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, look, I just think it's great that clients, suppliers and publishers are having open conversations about what measurement means, and more importantly, what metrics matter. Yeah, for us as a vendor, it's great to see surveys like these to understand really what matters and what we need to work on.
Yeah, and the technology advancements have started these conversations with these measurement providers for our business, right? Like, you know, hadn't probably had conversations with Near before the programmatic capabilities came in place. So, you know, there's other providers out there as well, and those conversations have started because technology is advancing. You can trade it via DSPs, and it's getting far more accessible at different budget levels. Before, it was always, you know, spend a couple of $100,000, you can unlock a big Kantar study or something along those lines. But now you can actually add CPM premiums, get some attribution back to your client to say, we're proving and moving the dial a little bit here and there. Are you comfortable with that? And move on. But it's not going to be the holy grail of the whole campaign's success, the programmatic out of home component.
Yeah, but the flexibility of options is, again, very, very important. Michael, anything to add?
I think for us, I mean, it's never been a case of attributing one form of measurement over another. And I'll use pharma as an example here. With pharma clients, it's always about utilising all channels to be able to drive sales and awareness. So I guess for us at Tonic, it's always about making sure that it's not just looking at programmatic home as a siloed channel, but how it's complementing other channels as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's very, very important to kind of have that view as well. So the top ask from the survey to drive greater investment in Australia was cost efficiency. That's what the market's asking for, cost efficiency. Brad and then Michael. This is going to get tasty. Does this just mean parity on CPMs versus direct bookings, or something else in your opinion?
CPM conversation's boring now. I'm over it. No, I mean, to be honest, I'm having very few conversations about CPM. If we're having a conversation about CPM, it's probably from one of the top 70 clients of JC&Co who pay lower CPMs because of the sheer weight of investment that they put into the out-of-home channel. Generally speaking, I think the programmatic market is comfortable with the rates that we're charging, which are broadly in line to the online ecosystem. I think we'll have a look at our CPM rates once Move 2.0 comes out, scheduled for early sort of Q2 timing, because every single asset across our whole portfolio is going to have a different audience score, which is going to deliver out different sort of numbers. So we need to look at that. So yeah, not saying they could go up, they could go down, but we're going to have a look at that review probably sort of come Q2. But yeah, we're just not really running into that. And interestingly, a quarter or more of our revenue comes from clients that don't actually trade with us on the direct.io side.
Yeah.
So they're not used to the rates, right? They're comfortable with the rates because that's the only rates that they know. And that's the good areas for us, is to be challenging those clients and getting more of those clients on board and not playing in that pool of existing out-of-home clients.
So what you're basically saying is, for the net new clients, the CPM comparison isn't necessarily how it would be traditional versus programmatic, but with other channels such as CTV or audio. And
Correct, because they don't have that base level of knowledge of heaps of campaigns that they've run within the direct.io side. So and generally speaking, there's a lower budget level, right? So they have to be tactical and have to be optimized with their programmatic investment. So yeah, we're not really seeing the CPM conversation. So I'm surprised it came up in your survey, Jem.
It wasn't my survey, I assure you. But,
Are you blaming me now?
Helen's fault.
Michael, from your side?
No, I would agree with Brad. I think we're moving on from the CPM
Yeah.
conversation, and more importantly, I know for us, again, as a media owner, we've very much kept our programmatic rates on par with our direct rates, make sure we're not cannibalizing on any buyers from that side. But then also ensuring that as a place-based vendor, we're staying in line with other place-based formats.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of conversations that we're having with agencies around how we compare in that regard. So just making sure that we stay on par with them.
And having a fair market price.
Yeah.
Catherine, what's your interpretation of this cost efficiency ask?
I'm going to get real saucy here because I totally disagree. No, Brad, you'd find agencies very boring because, man, we talk about CPMs all of the time with our clients. I think it's because we're, as agencies, and particularly Essence Mediacom, we are having those CPM conversations and those efficiency conversations for you and not involving you necessarily. I think it's an agency's job to justify why we're putting a recommendation forward. And so if I look, programmatic out-of-home CPM versus direct.io CPM, and there will be a difference, and there should be, but it's my job to make sure that there is justification if I am putting forward something like that. So, there's a lot of work that we're doing to make sure that our clients are really comfortable with what the CPMs are in programmatic out-of-home. And I say that because there still are clients out there that have a really dirty inventory association with programmatic out-of-home. And those conversations might have happened 3 or 4 years ago, but they're still happening now. And so it's our job to then show the kind of quality inventory that's in there to justify CPMs, but then also to make sure that, because the CPMs aren't like for likes, we're not doing the same audience stuff, right? So with programmatic out of home, when we're talking efficiencies, when we're talking CPMs, we're also, at least at Group M, talking about strike rates. How are we reaching an audience better, and what is the efficiency that we're driving with that? And that's the conversation that we're having. But I think that's on agencies. It's on us to do that justification. It's not necessarily your guys' responsibility.
And Nora, on that CPM justification piece, in your opinion, what needs to be done to better educate the market from, on the value of the additional data, targeting, flexibility, which may have a part in playing in increasing that CPM?
Yeah, for sure. I think, it's correct. The value of targeting and measurement is super, super important.
Yeah.
I think if we were to compare apples to apples, if you're able to apply targeting and frequency capping on traditional the way that we are in programmatic, they probably cost the same, but they can't do that. So I think it's up to us to be able to educate the client on the value of that.
Yeah.
I think if in terms of from a traditional sort of standpoint, I think from a brand's perspective, if they have the option to be able to target the desired audience where and when that they want to, they have to pay a premium for that. But I think it's on us to be able to educate them on the value of that, because it is really important.
I think to build on that, Laura, like our clients are also used to paying for that. So if I think like when we're in DV360 and we're adding targeting layers, like the clients are expecting that they're going to pay more for those targeting layers. So it's about taking those conversations through into out of home, but then at the same time also having the same justifications around direct IO out of home and why we would do that. So like we never want to have a dual conversation where, we're cannibalizing one area. So it's very much how we weave this web and talk programmatic out of home in a way that they'll understand from a digital, extra cost point of view versus out of home.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Brad, you've touched on this next one. We're going to be talking about Move 2.0, which we all know is on the horizon. And I'm going to start with you, if this is okay, and I want to know what impact you think this will have on the adoption of programmatic digital out of home. You kind of touched on it, but if you don't mind to elaborate.
It should be really positive, right? So I worked in out of home 2012. I started working in out of home, and then I got out of it after a couple of years and got into digital and programmatic. But this is the first major update in Move since probably 2010. There was an interim update of Move 1.5, but Move 2.0 is going to bring hourly seasonal data into out of home. It's going to drive consistency across every single publisher. Move has about 50 members now, so there's a lot of people that are paying. I think it's $20 million getting invested into Move 2.0. So it's a significant upgrade. It can only help programmatic because we're looking at the accuracy on an hourly basis. So I'm a Move 2.0 fan. I think it'll be good for the industry. The biggest opportunity on top of this, and what you've got to keep in mind, is that agencies have not had access to line-by-line or site-by-site data ever with Move. There is the possibility for them to get that. So there's basically expressions of interest out there now for agencies and DSPs to build their own planning tools based off Move 2.0 data. And that is where I think there's a real opportunity for someone to own that space and agencies to become really intelligent about how they're executing their out-of-home campaigns, both traditionally and also programmatically. And as I said, that's never happened before. So, I definitely recommend some agencies and DSPs explore that with Move. So I don't work for the OMA, I don't work for Move, but I think it's going to be really positive for our industry.
Did I hear you correctly when you said you're a fan of Move 2.0?
Yeah.
What does a fan of Move 2.0 look like? Do you have like posters on your wall? Or
I'm about to rip off my shirt and go Move 2.0. No. I'm an advocate, all right?
Advocate, okay. Sean, how is this likely to affect the measurement side of things?
Yeah, so at NEAR, definitely advocates as well. We're fortunate enough to be a vendor to Move as a sort of third-party data provider. And similar to what Brad said, I really think it'll just build awareness about the need for accurate data-driven solutions. So from a NEAR perspective, we're just looking at how we standardise the approach to attribution. So once we've got the Move side covered, how do we attribute that footfall or web visits and create a standardised approach across all channels?
Yeah, and that's very, very important. Catherine, any views on this one?
Yeah, it's good. I think agencies are stoked. The more the better. When Move first came out, it was like, I think, the best out-of-home measurement tool in the world. I think we've got nothing else to say, but the agencies are keen.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you're a fan like Brad as well?
Yeah, I won't rip off my shirt, but yeah, it's absolutely.
Excellent. Let's do a quick time check. Helen, are we good? Okay, excellent. Okay. So the next question is around sort of brand and performance and what programmatic out of home is mainly used for. The research tells us that globally, 83% of advertisers said that they use programmatic digital out of home for performance campaigns versus 77% for brand campaigns. And this is similar to what we saw in Australia as well, with Australia being 81% for performance and 78% for brand. Sean, starting with you this time, have you seen a change in the volume or type of requests you are getting in the out-of-home or programmatic out-of-home space?
Yeah, so as I said earlier, programmatic's definitely been a catalyst in terms of the measurement and attribution requests, as people are sort of eager to see what those key performance metrics are and how they prove that value or ROI of programmatic alongside the other channels. Traditionally, we're still seeing requests in the same sort of with the same sort of brands. So your large format retailers, automotive, fast food restaurants, tourism, locations where you can get large scale with sort of large format campaigns and then clearly attribute that footfall back to a store that has a large footprint. So that sort of stayed steady, but definitely an increase in volume and also an appetite to explore what other metrics outside the traditional footfall and web visits we can build into the mix.
Excellent. Catherine, how are you deciding which media channels to use for your clients' brands or performance campaign?
I mean, I could spend about an hour plugging Essence MediaCom and all the good things we do there to choose channels. But like, I think, realistically, it's not, like we get into a room together and we decide, we have a bunch of tools that have been millions of dollars been spent to make sure that, we're planning campaigns with channels that are based on the objectives that we have, historical data that we have for clients, and what the ideal outcome needs to be. So there's really no one size fits all on how we're doing it, but it's very much data informed planning. And I'm pretty stoked to hear, I hadn't heard that Move, we might be able to buy the data, but I imagine that that's something that we'll then be able to do in the future as well. So really it's kind of like, I guess, the data that we have access to, making sure historical client results, but then also that it is that omni-channel strategy. Brad's right, we're never planning out of home in just one way. It's how it fits amongst all the other channels that we're buying too.
Fantastic. And having that view across all of those channels.
Yeah, and I think it's also just important in that to know the role of what you're doing, but also the creative you're going to get. Like when we're talking like brand and performance for out of home, like, the client needs to make sure the creative they're putting on that in every single channel is doing that same job. Like you can't pretend that programmatic out of home is going to do a performance job if it's a brand creative,
Yeah, absolutely. Michael, are you seeing different types of campaigns programmatically versus when booked direct?
Most definitely. I think that's been one of the most interesting parts across our programmatic buys over the last couple of years. Because again, to build on your point, because they are data-driven executions and there's that omni-channel approach, we're seeing advertisers across a whole range of verticals that we wouldn't otherwise see from a direct standpoint. So financial clients, FMCG, retail, entertainment has been a big one for us. And again, because it's that audience-based buy, naturally tonic environments are popping up and we're adding to the value of a campaign.
Excellent. Thank you. So before we get to the last question, I'll have a quick Slido check. We've got a few questions, but if you wanted to get any questions across, now's a good chance to do so by using Slido. But coming back to the panel for the final question, it would be remiss of me, let you guys go without tapping into your expertise and your crystal ball and how you see the future. But what are the 3 things that need to be addressed now to avoid slowing down the adoption of programmatic out of home? And Michael, I'll start with you as you've got the mic.
Mine's probably just one point, and I reckon it's education. I think we just need to remain consistent with educating the market on programmatic out-of-home formats, audiences, but also the capabilities around measurement. I think if we're going to maintain growth, we need to see more and more clients venturing into that measurement space to prove its effectiveness.
Absolutely, and it's a topic that keeps coming back and back in all the other markets that we've been speaking to as well. Laura?
Yeah, I think education, a massive one. As I touched on before, I think the availability of programmatic inventory is going to be really important. I think only being able to buy in a certain type of way is only going to impede the growth, and I think as well, as I'm hoping will come with like Move and things like that, standardization I think is something that's really important for clients. It's probably one channel that's fairly new where we don't have that, and that's sort of what the I think industry is asking for.
Yeah, absolutely. Sean?
Yeah, so from a measurement vendor point of view, it's really about the standardization of attribution to bring it more in line with other channels. So we are currently working on some really interesting, mainly client-led approaches, like integrating play data from View, which is looking promising. And we'll have some case studies coming out in the near future which will hopefully play a part in sort of cementing that value.
Excellent. Catherine?
I think for me, the audience piece from an attribution angle, I think we're talking a lot about how we can be so targeted, but I think right now we need to nip any questions in the bud about exactly what data sources are being used. Second, really nailing verification, which we haven't talked much about, and I don't know if Brad wants to, but nailing verification, which is something which we're definitely trying to do, but it's getting asked a lot. And then finally, I think I'd love to see, particularly from an agency point of view, a bit more of like a standardization of, how we talk about programmatic out of home with our clients. I think it's being done really well in some places and not really well in others. And I think that's an agency job that has to be done.
Absolutely. And last but not least, Brad, what are your views on verification? No.
So it's not a huge focus for us. It hasn't been a huge focus. I think the verification guys are sort of been quite busy in that traditional side. So I think it'll grow. There's murmurs across the broader markets, the global markets that we're seeing. Like I think there'll be more development in that area at the moment, but I think there's some other things that are getting prioritised above that presently. But at different agencies, there's different levels of importance around verification, and I think the Move 2.0 coming in, that's going to eradicate a blocker that may be preventing 10% of clients considering out of home. Verification might be another sort of 5 or 10%. So I think incrementally we're going to eradicate the blockers over time. It won't happen overnight, and there'll be less excuses for clients to not run campaigns with us, basically. I think the thing that's probably potentially holding back programmatic out of home is the ability for agencies and trading desks to run successful campaigns. Mm-hmm. So slightly controversial, but there's a lot of agencies, and we've got the holistic view. I've got a national role, so I'm seeing across all agencies, all trading desks, they're all doing it a little bit differently. And there's actually a lot of agencies who aren't on the tools running the campaigns themselves and understanding digital out of home, how to run a successful campaign. I think there's risk in that. I don't think, as there's all the DSPs we work with are self-service. They've got a managed service as well, and I think there's sometimes a bit of a reliance on that for some agencies, and particularly some of the bigger holding groups. Group M, absolute exception. They're doing a really great job. So I think that's kind of one of the challenges, right? I don't think it'll accelerate, and I don't think people will explore measurement and great campaigns, creative, omni-channel, if they're not in the platform having a go at running the campaigns themselves.
Yeah.
So that's potentially an area that really needs focus. I think we contributed to the IAB. We did recently put out a training deck, and I think this one had a buyer's lens, right? So Michael Retham from Match & Wood, he's a real advocate for programmatic out of home. And there was also Matt Proud from the Trade Desk who, and Aaron was on there as well. There's some great buy-side, intel that went into that deck. It wasn't really much on the media owner side, which is a change, because a lot of these things that we've contributed to is the media owners kind of pushing it, but this was some buy side, and I think there's more and more that's needed. And I think if more people are in there running campaigns, that'll grow, appetite will grow, and I think the whole market will grow.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you so much. Panel, everybody. Brilliant. So that's the end of the questions that I had for you, but we've had quite a few come in from Slido, so I'll work through these ones, and then if there's anyone that wants to answer any particular volunteer, then that'll be good. So these ones are unscripted.
That wasn't scripted.
The first one, I mean, we've touched on Move 2.0 quite a bit, and we've kind of spoke about the excitement, but is there anything in particular about Move 2.0 that's getting you really kind of excited about what it can do as the main change for this channel?
This one's definitely a question for me, isn't it?
You go for it.
The hourly data, right? So the right now Move is a whole year average for a panel that delivers a weekly audience number, right? So in the CBD of Sydney during Easter, those numbers will drop, right, naturally, and then on the roads going out regionally, they're going to increase because there's families that are travelling with their Move doesn't reflect that, right? It's reflected in mobile device data that we can see from measurement partners, but it currently doesn't deliver that. So that I would suggest is probably the biggest thing. It's going to add it's going to add a layer of accuracy, it's going to add a layer of robustness, and then the ability for clients for agencies to grab that data and start to build their own tools, I think is a really huge opportunity. So I'd say that, because right now, it's a raw average, it's a weekly average, and there's not much seasonality that's put in there.
Thanks, Brad. The next one is, I believe it's a media owner question. So, Michael, on other digital channels, we have multiple verification methods. Are any of your businesses investing in quality programmatic digital out-of-home verification?
Yes, and I guess to expand on what Brad said before, it's sitting on the media owner side, it's always been a tricky one, especially media owner side under programmatic, because verification has somewhat not been deemed too important or not been a priority area for us. So it's a constant reminder for myself, especially to place myself in the agency and client's mind, because I know for them that their education level isn't necessarily on par with mine. So verification sometimes for them is a necessity. So in saying that, it's entailed me to build relationships with verification partners and also offer it on hand if it's going to be that sweetener to get a certain campaign over the line. So we're definitely seeing it a lot, even from a programmatic standpoint at Tonic.
Excellent. Brad, anything you want to add on that one?
Well, I would just say that if a client's buying a campaign through a DSP, I wish they were buying 100% with JCDecaux, but that's not always the case, right? They're going to run across multiple vendors, so they want to verify across all the vendors.
Yep.
Typically, the way that's kind of happening at the moment is that it's in the wrapper of said DSP, and then they're able to sort of track the play logs based down to that point. That's the simplest way I can explain it. So it wouldn't be advantageous to work with sort of JCDecaux on that internally, to then work with View on that, and then you can verify 40% of your campaign that ran with JCDecaux, and the other 60% you're still working on that. So it's sitting with the buy side in order to scale that across right now, and I can't see that changing in the immediate future.
And staying with you, Brad, again, it's another media owner question, and Michael, you've already answered this as 100%, but what percentage of your inventory is now available programmatically, and is this number expected to grow as investment increases in the channel?
Yeah, so there's 99% of our assets have 5% supply dedicated at all times. There's probably a path on some certain formats to get 10% share of time from next year as a set standard, particularly around sort of small format. Yeah, supply is not an issue. It's never been an issue for us. Since day one, we've had 5% supply dedicated. There's a couple of outlier large format assets which either have very strange pixel variations, or we are upgrading the technology in them. And as soon as we upgrade that technology, we will trade it programmatically. That's the only thing that's holding it back. It's not the fact that we don't want to put it into the programmatic allotment.
Yeah.
So yeah, 100% committed to getting that number to 100%.
Fantastic. Next question is verification as well. We've answered that one, so I'll move down to the next. And this one's probably going to be for you, Laura. Programmatic adds cost to any campaign due to ad tech involved. How do you see this impacting growth of programmatic when direct can be more cost efficient?
I think it goes back to what I mentioned before on being able to communicate value. I think like price is one thing, but efficiency is another. If you're looking at it as we generally are as digital out-of-home playing one part as part of an overall omni-channel solution, I think being able to look at that in the other mix and being able to measure that holistically, frequency caps so you're not like blasting out your impressions, actually all plays a big part in efficiency and the value of that. I think as well, being able to do all the things that you're able to do programmatically, target, measure, at the right time, in the right places, there's absolute value to that, and I think it's just educating that there's not much more you can do. If you want to do those cool, amazing things, they do come with a price. It's just whether they value those things enough, I think, is where it is, yeah.
Yeah.
I think to add to that as well, like our clients are used to paying data and tech fees for their digital activation.
Yeah.
So it's not like we're asking them to do something they've never done before.
So it goes back to that value exchange conversation that we were touching on earlier. Catherine, if we stay with you for the next one, what do you see as the largest driver of programmatic adoption over 2024, and what initiatives can the industry do to come together to deliver this for your clients?
Yeah, I think that's really good question, whoever asked that. I think, honestly, the way that programmatic out-of-home communicates audience targeting and that differentiation factor, because as we move into next year, we are having conversations again with clients that used to be very EBI, mass, always on, have now very much started pivoting to a high-value audience HVA conversation. And so that's something that is very much an advantage of programmatic out-of-home. So I would say that that is the conversation that we should be having, because that is who our major marketing, global CMOs, that's a lot of the way that they're moving, and that means that that will start trickling down into the conversations for 2024, and that's a key differentiator.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the next one's more for the vendors in the room, so media owners and possibly you as well, Sean. It's about carbon footprint, and programmatic buyers in general have, a considerable carbon footprint. What are your companies doing in order to offset this? Who'd like to go first?
It's a good one, isn't it?
Very good.
So I think we at JC2Co, been carbon neutral since 2015. All our digital small format, all our digital large format is all carbon neutral. So we've done a lot of that with the carbon offsetting. There's a lot of the renewable energy piece that is powered by renewable energy. From a JC2Co Australia level, we're pretty sound and probably one of the leaders in this market, I would suggest, and quite proud to work for a company that has been pushing this for so long. Globally, again, big sustainability plan that JC2Co has in place. Everything around sort of renewable bus shelters, and there's a whole bunch of different things that filter into that as well. I think the programmatic ecosystem is a bit more of a challenge, and I think we're all having conversations with some of those sort of carbon calculators. We've responded to a group M1. There's a bunch of whole stuff that agency by agency, they're all doing it slightly differently.
Yeah.
And then again, they're going to have to audit all the tech providers, the SSPs, the DSPs as well, right? So I think from where we stand, we're quite comfortable with the inventory that we provide, and the footprint that we have on the planet is pretty sound. And the tech vendors that we work with, the auditing of that is going on at the moment. And changes might take place from there. I'm not 100% sure where that will go. So there's only so much that we can control in that whole chain, and I'm comfortable where we're at as a business on it.
Sean, anything to add from your side?
Yeah, so we're I guess a late stage startup, and I guess we're a massive data vendor and processor, and we sort of tie it back to costs. Our AWS costs, as you could imagine, are through the roof, and that also has a big carbon footprint. So we're undertaking a huge exercise at the moment to see just where we can make efficiencies across the business to cut down on that.
Excellent. Last couple, and probably going to start with you, Michael, because you touched this as one of your predictions for the next year. And it's about education. And the question is, whose responsibility should it be to educate the market around programmatic out-of-home? Is it the media owner's responsibility, the DSPs, or the SSPs?
I think it's all of us working collaboratively to build upon education. I mean, I would normally say it's the media owner's response. I'm more than happy to do so, but I think it does take a concerted effort from all parties to want to build on their education level and then take it from there.
Yeah. Laura, your views on this one?
Yeah, I agree. I think for us, we've found really good value in, I guess, sort of like teaming up with some of the media owners, because I think a lot of the time we are speaking the same language, even if we have slightly different points of view. And I think like between us all, moving forward, I think opening up that programmatic inventory, there's going to grow demand, and I think adding digital out of home as part of an omnichannel mix is going to drive that growth as a channel and get in money from other channels and really drive that. I think even just from the sustainability viewpoint, from our point of view as well, they're obviously doing those things. From our point of view, it's an efficiency thing, and if you're buying efficiently, programmatically, you're going to be saving carbon there as well. There's just different ways that we've got different point of views with the same message. So I think, the collaboration is key on that one.
Absolutely. We all have a part to play, right? We're all in this ecosystem. So, last question. Catherine, probably more. It's around creative, which is good. We kind of touched on creative, but didn't really have an opportunity to kind of talk about it a lot. So I'm glad this one has come about, and it's basically around DCO. You've got clients that are actually now dabbling in DCO. Have you run any successful DCO campaigns that you can share with us?
Great question. Look, there are lots of clients dabbling in DCO. Are they doing it well? Not a lot of them. No, I think, look, none of my clients have successfully run a DCO campaign in out of home yet. And I think a lot of that comes down to when we've gotten to the nitty-gritty end of it, really being sure that that exact right audience relevant to that creative has run at that time. I think what we have been successful in is more the addressable piece, in terms of like making sure that the context of that creative is right. And when I say that, you know, we've got some brands, and I think like Coca-Cola is one of them, where we're running campaigns where, you know, in the afternoon we're doing an afternoon specific creative and things like that. And that's, I would say that's very basic. But I think we could be a lot better in what we're doing from a DCO perspective, and I think hopefully, but it's definitely being deprioritised by a lot of our clients and something we've pushed, but yeah, it comes down to creative asset readiness, and like Hogarth's doing some amazing work. Yeah. It's just getting it all the way through can be really difficult.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, thank you for the great questions, and thank you guys for answering them, and thank you for all of you for coming along today. Really appreciate it. And that concludes State of the Nation Australia. Thank you.